America, the land of liberty, dreams, and the occasional trade war. Today, we're going on a journey through time, from Ronald Reagan's bright, shining city on a hill to Donald Trump's steel-walled fortress. Two Republican revolutions 40 years apart that reshaped not just their party, but the very idea of what America stands for. Both men promised greatness. Both changed history. But while Reagan's America opened its arms to the world, Trump's built taller fences. Same stars and stripes, entirely different stories. Let's start with Reagan. It's the early 1980s. The Cold War is raging, inflation has only just been tamed, and America is still finding its post-Vietnam confidence. Then comes Ronald Reagan, a former actor with a disarming smile and a remarkable gift for optimism. He loved to talk about that shining city upon a hill, a symbol of hope for anyone willing to work for it. But Reagan's America was also facing a growing challenge: immigration. The old immigration laws from the 1960s had removed racist quotas, but they also capped entries from Latin America for the first time. Combined with economic turmoil in Mexico and Central America, that meant millions started arriving without papers. The system was overwhelmed. Reagan, ever the pragmatist, decided to do something bold. In 1986, he signed the Immigration and Control Act, IRCA, the first major immigration law in decades. It was built on a grand compromise: offer amnesty to those already here, crack down on employers who hired undocumented labor, and strengthen the border to prevent future waves. It sounded simple. In practice, not so much. About 2.7 million people were legalized, mostly Mexicans and farm workers, giving millions a real shot at the American dream. That part worked beautifully. But the enforcement part, the stop it from happening again part, fell flat. Employers could now be punished for hiring undocumented labor, but there was a catch. As long as the papers looked real, they were off the hook. Within months, fake IDs were everywhere. The government had created an amnesty without a lock. And when migration picked up again in the 1990s, conservatives fumed. They decided amnesty was a dirty word. Reagan's shining generosity had, in their eyes, backfired. Still, the spirit behind it mattered. Reagan genuinely saw immigration as an act of faith, proof that people believed in America. He wanted to welcome, not exclude. Even when things went wrong, his tone was hopeful. The city's doors, he said, must remain open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. It's hard to imagine a Republican president saying that now. But immigration wasn't Reagan's only balancing act. He faced another problem: trade. The 1980s economy was booming, but the world was changing fast. Japan was eating America's lunch in cars, steel, and electronics. U.S. factories were closing, unions were angry, and Congress was threatening massive tariffs. Reagan loved free markets, at least in theory. He warned about protectionism, saying it led to disaster in the 1930s. But he was also a shrewd politician. When Congress demanded action, he didn't fight, he finessed. He negotiated with Japan to limit car exports. He slapped 100% tariffs on Japanese TVs and computers when they ignored U.S. trade rules. He imposed quotas on steel, sugar, textiles, and even motorcycles, saving Harley-Davidson from collapse. He was, as one historian put it, a free trader with a short temper. But Reagan's protectionism wasn't ideology, it was politics. Each time he acted tough on trade, he took the steam out of Congress's push for even harsher measures. His goal wasn't to close markets, it was to keep them open by avoiding a full-scale trade war. That was Reagan's genius: compromise without confession. He could defend free trade while quietly breaking its rules just enough to keep everyone calm. The result was stability, not perfection, but stability, and that, in Reagan's world, was good governing. Now let's skip ahead 30 years. The Cold War is ancient history. China is the new powerhouse. The Internet has turned the world into one giant market, and a lot of Americans don't like what that market has done to them. In walks Donald Trump. If Reagan was the great communicator, Trump was the great disruptor. He looked at Reagan's shining city and said, "Nice view. Let's build a wall around it." Trump's message was simple. America was being cheated by immigrants, by China, by global elites. He promised to fight back. Where Reagan talked about opportunity, Trump talked about invasion. And unlike Reagan, he didn't wait for Congress. He just signed things. During his first term, Trump's administration made nearly 500 changes to immigration policy. That's not reform. That's demolition and reconstruction. He banned travel from Muslim-majority countries. He forced asylum seekers to wait in Mexico under brutal conditions. He tried to end birthright citizenship by executive order, and he declared the southern border an invasion, using that claim to override asylum law, a move so extreme that federal courts had to step in. The human toll was enormous. Families were separated. Legal immigrants withdrew from public life out of fear. Farmers and factories suddenly couldn't find workers. Economists warned that mass deportations would shrink the U.S. economy by more than 6%. But the political effect was the opposite. Trump's support hardened. His voters saw not cruelty, but courage. To them, he was finally doing what politicians had promised since Reagan and never delivered: control. The details didn't matter. The symbolism did. Walls, bans, proclamations, they all said the same thing. America belongs to Americans first. And then came the trade wars. Reagan used tariffs like a scalpel. Trump used them like a hammer. He declared foreign steel and aluminum a national security threat. He punished China for unfair trade by taxing hundreds of billions in imports. He raised tariffs on cars, electronics, even household goods. At one point, the average U.S. tariff rate hit nearly 28%, the highest since the 1930s. Economists howled. Consumers paid more. Farmers lost billions when China retaliated. But politically, Trump scored big. In the industrial Midwest, in towns hollowed out by globalization, people cheered. For the first time, they felt someone was fighting for them, even if the fight cost them money. The tariffs didn't bring back factories, but they brought back pride. And pride, in politics, is priceless. When you put Reagan and Trump side by side, the contrast is staggering. Reagan believed in cooperation. Trump believed in confrontation. Reagan worked through Congress. Trump ruled through executive orders. Reagan saw immigrants as the proof of America's greatness. Trump saw them as a threat to it. Reagan's protectionism was reluctant and precise. Trump's was sweeping and defiant. Reagan called America a beacon. Trump called it a fortress. One reached outward, the other turned inward. And the party followed. Under Reagan, the Republican platform celebrated free enterprise, international alliances, and America's moral leadership. Under Trump, it became America first, protectionist, nationalist, and proudly anti-globalist. By 2024, Republican rhetoric had completely flipped. The same party that once championed NAFTA now demanded tariffs on all imports. The party that once praised immigrants now talked about invasions. Reagan's shining optimism gave way to Trump's storm-cloud populism. It's not an evolution, it's a revolution, one that rewrote the GOP's DNA. What can we learn from this 40-year transformation? Reagan taught America that optimism could inspire compromise, but only if it worked. His immigration deal failed on enforcement, and that failure destroyed faith in bipartisan reform for generations. Trump taught that anger could mobilize a movement, but at a cost. His tariffs and crackdowns hurt the economy, yet they cemented loyalty. He showed that identity politics could overpower economics, that the feeling of control was more valuable than actual prosperity. Together, they tell a story about America's shift from idealism to grievance, from a nation that wanted to lead the world to one that wants to guard its borders. Reagan's shining city still stands, at least in memory, but the floodlights now face inward. The walls are taller, the gates heavier, and the invitation